Hello, this is my first video about Baldur Gates. As you can see, I'm playing Enhanced Edition, and first video I'm actually going to talk about basically the different mods I have installed on it. This is not a vanilla version. I use something called the Tweaks Anthology, and it's basically a collection of lots of different gameplay fixes, and just makes everything much, in my mind, better and easier. Um, and I'll provide the link, but basically you can download from here, and it supposedly works on any sort of like Infinity Engine based games. So Baldur Gate, Baldur Gates 2 Enhanced Edition, etc., etc. I only tried it on Baldur Gates Enhanced Edition, the first one, but it's supposed to be working anywhere. So the way it works, you download this file and you tell it where your game is installed, and then it basically goes through this idea of just have a bunch of different fixes that can apply, and you just pick one by one which one you want. And so some of them pretty cool. This one just sort of like removes helmets, which is nice. This one's pretty nice too. It basically just makes the weapon animations much nicer, because otherwise you'll see some silly things like backhand swings with something that can't actually do that, etc. And so this is kind of fixes that. I use this. I don't really know what's the difference, but whatever. This is kind of nice. I find that in vanilla version, the NPCs can sometimes be just sort of like everyone look like a jester, and this obviously kind of changed it to be more, like actual peasants or commoners or whatever. Let's see what else. I've installed this. Boo is just annoying, so I know this seems to be making it better. This just makes the magic shields nicer. Again, this is just sort of like small stuff. This helps a little bit with just understanding like what kind of resistance you have right now. That's not a big deal. This next part's kind of make it the game better and just kind of reduce the different annoyances and stuff you don't like. And this is like super old game, and so a lot of the stuff just sort of like doesn't really make sense anymore. It's very micro heavy. It's like so all these things kind of improve the quality of life. More interjection just makes the NPC chat more common, which is fun. Again, they just sort of like add some flavor, because what it does is basically makes the kind of the enemies you fight more likely to say sort of like other stuff, not just like, hey, I'm going to fight you. This just makes Cloakwood accessible before kind of completing the abandoned camp. Either way, it's fine. I don't use this because I find the existing mechanic already annoying, but basically this allows you to make not just weapons, but everything else which is not magical be breakable before cleaning Nashkel mines. This is great. I don't use this because I don't use multiplayer, but this is great because what it does is basically lets you take the any sort of like character you can add to your party, and when you get rid of them, remove them from the party, you can now talk to them and say, hey, go to I think I usually tell them to go to Jovial Juggler, and so you no longer need to remember where you left every one of them. You just kind of go to the same place, and it's kind of neat because they all just sort of like stand there and wait for you. Just a bunch of stuff that helps with bags, makes bags more useful. This is kind of nice in that it makes all the cities you visit sort of like visible from the beginning. Doesn't really matter either way. This just makes things like buying bullets or arrows easier, because instead of like buying it by like 20s, which is like super time consuming and annoying, you just buy it, I think, like 120 of each. Um, um, I don't know what I think I have this installed, but I think it just makes the shape shifting better, but I don't use it, so I'm not even sure what it does. Let's see, multiple strongholds, it's not relevant to Baldur Gates 1. Not relevant to Baldur Gates 1. Cromwell, not relevant. Yeah, this one is kind of nice, because what happens in the game is that quite a few of the companions cannot be accessed until way later in the game. And so this just makes it so that you can literally get pretty much everyone by the chapter 3. Which I think it's more important for like evil parties, because you don't have enough companions. But either way, it's just like you just want to be able to mix and match. You don't want, like, by the time you kind of get to the end game, like, you don't want to add new people to your party. Yeah, so rule changes are actual changes into the sort of like Dungeon Dragons mechanics. And so what this does is kind of makes bunch of changes, which again just sort of like make more sense and make things easier to play with.
Hello.
And so it's kind of, so like this one specifically makes bastard swords be either one-handed, two-handed. Same for katanas, same for axes. I didn't actually use this one, but basically this one makes sure that so that like anyone can use clubs. I kind of disagree with it, because I think it's not that you can swing it, it's like what do you hit, and so like mages don't necessarily know what to hit. Weapon styles for all, I think I do allow it, because like if someone wants to, I use that, so like mages or whatever can use like different specializations or whatever, just for styles. This just can remove experience cap. This can remove experience cap. It's nice, fine. So what this does, and this is also like super interesting, like if you multi-class in, let's say, in this case, fighter thief, it basically allows to use all the different thieving abilities while in armor. By default, you can't. Like in vanilla, you can, and now you can, but you get a penalty to it. It just helps with sort of like micro, because you no longer need to like every time remove armor, put it back, especially for something that's fairly trivial. And of course, like some cases you still need to do it, but it just makes it so much easier. Kind of the same deal, except for fighter mages, it basically allows casting with armor, but you get miscast penalty. So like let's say if you're using hide armor, you get 20%. Maybe it's reasonable. Scale get 25, etc. This makes again like less micro. You just take like a hit, and this is how like original D&D rules are. So this actually fixes that. Just a bunch of sort of like options that remove some sort of like restrictions. Just gives you more freedom in terms of like how you set up your characters. This one I like, and the one I use is the I think this one. But basically what it does is sort of like combines proficiencies into a sort of like single thing. So like all swords and now large swords, instead of having like bastard sword proficiency, long sword proficiency. Just doesn't make any sense to me, that different swords have different requirements. So like this just kind of combines that. But you still have like small swords versus like large swords versus like blunt versus spiked, etc., etc. So it kind of keeps it realistic instead of just like very too detailed, I think. This one I don't really use anyway because like I think casting spells from scrolls is like bullshit. Because realistically, like what you're going to read scroll in the middle of a fight, but it can make it sort of like more reasonable. I don't use any of that stuff because I just remove identification. There's a way to do it later. I just makes so that people can different characters, regardless like non-fighters, can be grandmasters in certain weapons. Just a bunch of consistency fixes. Kind of makes the spell tables and taco tables more sort of like gradual instead of like spiky. Allows HLAs for multi-class. I mean, I don't think this is, well, definitely not relevant for Baldur's Gate first one. Yeah, this allows kind of to remove, so like you can make humans to be multi-class. It used to be that you could only dual class. This kind of can change that if you want. Kind of removes racial restrictions. Again, kind of remove some of the dual class restrictions, some restrictions for kids. Oh, this one is nice. I actually played a little bit with it. Basically, it makes it so that fighter clerics can actually use like not just blunt weapons. Yeah, this one's kind of also nice. Just lets you carry more stuff. Honestly, I wish they just removed weight limit. Just such a useless. It's just a thing that doesn't really add anything to the game. Just makes it, objectively worse and more tedious. Again, I don't really use spell scrolls, so I don't care. Again, this is just again like sort of like convenience tweaks and just reduces the micro again. So like max HP on level 1, so like you don't have to reroll. This one also gives you higher full HP on each level up. I mean, you can get the same effect by just reloading a bunch of times, but again, why to waste the time? Just do it. I don't remember if I took this one and this one. I think I did. I'm not entirely sure what it does. This just makes all the items identified from the beginning because, again, it just doesn't add anything to the game. Like, you can always go, like, to any temple or shop and, like, identify whatever. Just takes time and, what's the point? So it just makes everything identified. The one thing though, it also removes the blue sort of like background, so you just need to sort of like hover over everything and sort of like make sure you're not missing some good item. Make sure you don't miss on writing spells into spellbook. Again, like you can reload and just do it again, but like why? Bunch of bag improvements. I kept this one, but because I think it's sort of like the most iconic part of the game. You must gather a party thing, but you could remove it if it annoys you. This one is cool because this allows you to play evil and get the same discount as like super good, characters. And I think it makes sense because like if you're super evil, people are afraid of you, so they kind of give you discount. Just this thing basically lets you play it evil, I think, way more effectively. Ammo stack, just engage, make sure that everything's so much easier to stack. Scrolls. This one is basically lets you have NPCs that don't necessarily agree with you but don't leave you. So like if you're good, your evil companions don't leave and vice versa. I don't like when they leave, so like let's just keep them same. They just don't fight between each other, so like we don't want to lose them. This one I keep, but if you feel like traps or locks are annoying, just removes them. And in some ways, like it's just a waste of time. Like you open it and like okay, whatever. Um, I don't use this, but you can rest anywhere, including like in towns, so like you don't get guards come after you. Um, this allows you to change how often you get attacked while in hostile area resting. Um, I think it's actually useful to have those attacks because it lets you to like farm XP. But again, if you find it annoying, you can decrease it, or you can increase it actually to kind of get more farming. I didn't change it, but someone may be interested. Just makes stores easier. Blah blah blah. It just makes it so that like errors can be recovered. I don't think it's useful, but whatever. Yeah. This one is cool because what it does is basically make sure that whoever joins your party gets up leveled to the right level. So like if you played and like level 6 and some, you need to try to get a new companion, like they just automatically up level, otherwise you have to like babysit them. This lets you separate the sort of like pairs which are not separatable in vanilla, which is kind of cool. Like for example, Minx and Dynahair, you could do it before by like killing one of them, but like again, it's just cheese, and with this you can just do it, and it's fun. You can make like some changes to some of the companions, kind of turning Khalid into fighter mage. I don't think I did any of those. I did remove Boo out of quick access just to kind of make Minx slightly better. Yeah, and that's basically it. So, I mean, as you can see, like the entire point is like doesn't make the game like significantly easier, and you can always like change the difficulty if you want, but it does remove like a lot of annoying stuff out of it. All right, thank you. Until next time, see you.